Saving our memory lane.
Get ready!
On today's episode of Memory Lane, we're going to be showing off some really good, awesome Atari 2600 games. This is going to be like a little buyer's guide, so if you guys want to have a little guide to guide you through purchasing some really good Atari 2600 games, here it is. Now, these are some of my favorite games, so without any further ado, let's head over and let's check it out. Got Adventure for the Atari 2600. Oh yeah, on the Adventure label art right here, as you can see, we have a dragon, a castle. We have a little guy right there that's trying to fight the dragon. And you can see it's actually pretty nice looking label art, so it looks pretty promising. So let's head over to the actual game itself and let's see if it's good. Alright, here we have Adventure. You have to go around and find keys, try to get through the doors, and grab arrows. And you can see right here, this game is a classic on the Atari 2600. It's a maze style game to try to make your way around. And oh my god, what the hell is that? It's like a dragon, an Atari 2600 dragon. Try not to get killed. Grab that key, and it's very, very suspenseful. You have to try to make it all the way around. Oh my god, what the hell is that? It's another dragon. You can see that this game gets a 3-star. This game is awesome. Alright, here we have Alien for the Atari 2600. Now, based off the Alien movie right there, 20th Century Fox. Now, there's not really that much of a fancy label art here to be seen at all. It's mostly a little image of the actual game right there in the center. And right away you can tell that it's like a Pac-Man ripoff. But is it a good or bad Pac-Man ripoff? Let's head over to the Atari 2600 and let's find out. And here we have Alien for the Atari 2600. And as right away you can see that it's definitely a Pac-Man ripoff. Right down to the sound effects and the map layout. And it's basically the same concept as Pac-Man, except with a twist. You have a weapon you can shoot these aliens with. And you know what? This game is actually pretty fun. I like this game quite a bit. It's a lot of fun to play. It gives you a really, really good action-packed alternative to Pac-Man. I'm gonna give it a 3-star. I would highly recommend this. It's actually a pretty decent Atari 2600 game. It's pretty awesome. We have Asteroids for the Atari 2600. Quite the common game for the 2600. Let's check this out. So as you can see here, Asteroids on the Atari 2600 has a pretty cool looking label art right here. One of the best. You have a spaceship flying through a whole bunch of asteroids orbiting around Earth, trying to protect Earth from being hit by asteroids. Check that out. It looks pretty awesome. Alright, let's head over to the Atari 2600 and let's check out Asteroids. Alright, here we are playing Asteroids on the Atari 2600. One of my favorite games of all time on the 2600. It's probably not nearly as good as the arcade version, but still really, really fun to play. As you can see right here, I got blown up by a bunch of asteroids, and we have to blow these asteroids up and try to survive. It's a very, very awesome space shooter on the Atari 2600. I love it. It gets a 3-star because this game is really, really awesome. And it's a pretty cool arcade port. Not arcade perfect, but it's pretty cool. But now let's check out Centipede for the Atari 2600. This game is just as awesome. Let's check this out. Let me know what you rate the game down below. Alright, so on the Centipede label art right here, as you can see, we have a killer centipede over on the right side. We even have a spider over on the left side. It looks like we have a space marine or someone in the center trying to survive. Both the centipede and the spider are trying to kill them. Pretty cool looking label art, definitely hand drawn. Let's go check out Centipede for the Atari 2600. So right away, one thing I really like about Centipede is its little title screen right there with the wiggly looking centipede, and here we have the actual gameplay. And it definitely resembles exactly how the arcade version looks, but in the Atari 2600 form. And it's a pretty good arcade port. It's not bad at all. And it delivers. It does exactly what it's supposed to do for a Centipede game. It gets a 3-star. It's actually a pretty good version of Centipede in my opinion. I think it's actually not bad at all. It's awesome! Alright, next on the list we have Combat for the Atari 2600, and you can see here I have many different versions of Combat. There's neither one of them are exactly the same. This one has a weird spine label that has a 01 at the end. They have all different fonts at the end of the spine labels. Combat is weird. As far as the cartridges go, there's so many different copies of Combat. And Combat is a great game. It will definitely get 3 stars. In my opinion. So let's take a look at Combat. Alright, let's take a look at the label art on Combat. You can see on Combat, the label art on this cartridge right here. Very, very busy. You have a huge combat going on. It looks like World War III. I mean, look at this. You have planes, tanks, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It looks pretty awesome. You can tell that it's hand-drawn. Very, very classic artwork on the Atari 2600. And of course, the gameplay on Combat is classic, especially if you're playing 2 players. You can play as a tank. As you can see here, there's many different maps you can choose from, different levels, different difficulties, and this game is fun. You can go around and driving as a tank, you can take the other tank out, and it's top-down view. And the 2600 actually had some actual 3D looking tank games, but this was actually, I believe, the first game on the 2600, if I'm not mistaken. And you can also fly planes right here, as you can see, have a dogfight. And this game gets a 3-star. It's classic. It's awesome. It's a great 2-player game. Alright, next up we have Fantastic Voyage for the Atari 2600. It's a movie that honestly, I never watched this movie before. But there's a game, Fantastic Voyage. And we're not talking about the Coolio rap song, Fantastic Voyage, which was a classic back in the day. We're talking about the movie, and you see right there on the label art, there's only a little screenshot, a little sample of what we're going to get, and there's no label art whatsoever. So let's head over to the Atari 2600, and let's check out Fantastic Voyage. And here is the game, Fantastic Voyage on the Atari 2600. It turns out it's a like a shooter, but you're in like a perimeter right here. So like there's 2 walls on each side of you. You cannot surpass the wall. You have to try to survive all these moving objects. You have to try to shoot these objects, and eventually the walls actually close in on you, and you get even more or lesser room to actually move around. It gets more and more challenging to actually play the game. And you know what? The game's actually a lot of fun. This game is definitely a 3-star in my opinion. I think the game's actually pretty cool. I highly recommend, if you have an Atari 2600, try to hunt down a copy of Fantastic Voyage. Alright, the next game that we're going to be showing off here is Fast Food for the Atari 2600. Fast Food. Let's check this game out. And here we have the Fast Food label art right there. You got the Fast Food neon looking logo right there on the very top. You have a big huge pair of lips. You got a hot dog, hamburger, it looks like french fries, pizza, all kinds of stuff right here. Ew, makes me hungry. Look at this. And I got the Telesis logo right there on the bottom. Pretty crazy looking label art. Let's check the game out. And here we have Fast Food, the gameplay. And you can see you're basically a mouth, and you're trying to eat as much as possible. Look at this. Oh my god, look, he's eating everything. It's pretty crazy looking. And you can see the Telesis logo on the bottom, the 1982 copyright. It looks like you just ate a Dorito right there, and you're getting fatter. You can get definitely big and fat in this game. This game is actually, even though it looks stupid, it's actually pretty fun. This game gets a 3-star rating. It's fun, and it makes sense, I guess. The more you eat, the fatter you get. Alright, here we have Flash Gordon for the Atari 2600, a 20th Century Fox game. They make a lot of movie games, TV show games for the Atari. And this is based on the Flash Gordon movies, TV show, whatever you want to call it. Right there in the center, I remember watching Flash Gordon years ago. That bald guy right there in the center, I don't even remember what his name is, but he used to scare the crap out of me the way he looks. He's a very, very frightening looking guy. And let's head over to the Atari 2600 and let's play some Flash Gordon. Get ready for some Flash Gordon shooter action on the Atari 2600. And here it is, folks. Flash Gordon on the Atari 2600. You have like a little radar maze right there on the bottom that depicts the location that you're at. So this is definitely not your typical vertical or horizontal shooter. You actually have different layers. You can move forward and back and go different directions using that maze. Now this game at first glance probably doesn't look fun at all. But you know what? It's a lot of fun. I actually love this game a lot. I love the little radar on the bottom that tells you where your enemies are. The game also is not too difficult. And it's not too easy either. So it's like just the right difficulty. It's a lot of fun. You caught me playing the Atari 2600, oh boy. So the next game that we're going to be checking out here is Frogger for the Atari 2600. Frogger is a classic. Check this out. And here we have the Frogger label art for the Atari 2600. And you can tell that it's a Parker Brother cartridge, just by the way it looks. You have the frog right there on the label. He's very, very scared, about ready to have his balls chomped off by an alligator. Or perhaps a crocodile, I'm not sure. But he looks really, really scared. Let's take a look at the game. Alright, here we are playing Frogger for the Atari 2600. It's a classic. I'm pretty sure all you guys played this before. And the concept of this game is you have to hop across the road, then eventually make it across the pond, or the river right there. And try not to die. As you can see right here, we're trying to make it to the very end where the little small openings are at the end and the top. Now this game is definitely a classic arcade game on the 2600. 3 stars! Here we have Ghostbusters, an Activision game for the Atari 2600. You can see the Ghostbusters logo right there in the center. Pretty cool. There's really no text or anything like that. It's just the plain, good old Ghostbusters logo right there in the center, with the Activision logo right there on the top. And this game, it's one of the few Activision games that does not qualify to get an Activision patch back in the day. So if you score a certain score on certain games, you would actually receive a patch if you mailed in the score. Let's check this game out. Ghostbusters! And here we have Ghostbusters on the 2600. And the graphics actually look pretty good on this game. It's an Activision game, and the driving sequence right here is actually pretty cool. I actually like it a lot. Then you show up to an area where you have to try to capture ghosts. You have to try to figure out where exactly you're going. You have to drive from building to building from that top layer map. And here we go, we have a ghost right here. Let's catch that son of a bitch. Yeah, get that Slimer. And here we go, we're trying to catch it. And I like this game a lot. The 2600 version of this game is actually really good. I'm giving it a 3 star. It's a lot of fun. Alright, next up we have Gremlins for the Atari 2600. Yeah, that's right, we have a Gremlins game. And this game is, I believe it came out in '84, according to the copyright down there in the bottom. And you have Gizmo right there. You have all the Gremlins, the bad Gremlins in the background. Pretty cool looking label art. I like the label art a lot. This is definitely one of my top favorite Atari 2600 movie, TV show label arts. It looks pretty cool. You got the Gremlins logo right there on the top. And yeah, let's head over to the Atari 2600 and figure out how this translates. And here we have Gremlins for the Atari 2600. Pretty cool title screen. And as you can see right there, this game is basically you have to like run back and forth and try to catch the Gremlins before they reach the hamburgers right there on the bottom. And at first glance, the game may not look like it's that fun. But it's actually pretty fun. I actually like this game. And then you have this sequence right here where they're hatching from the eggs. And you have to try to stop them. You have to kill them. These are the bad gremlins. And this game gets a 3-star. I like it a lot. It's a lot of fun. This is actually a really, really great arcade movie game on the Atari 2600. I mean, I would not expect any more or any less from it. I would have expected this game to be pretty bad, as usual for a movie game, but this game is actually not bad at all. It's actually pretty good. I like it a lot. I like the few different levels that are in this game. You know, it's one of those games you just want to pop into your Atari and play it every once in a while. It's actually pretty good. Highly recommend it. Alright, things are about to get real scary. We have Halloween for the Atari 2600. This game released, I believe, in 1983. And that's based off the first Halloween movie, and the label art here. There might be a few different variations of it, because I know this game had reprints and stuff, but this label art is all over the place. This looks strange, really strange. Not a huge fan of it, but it's really, really bizarre. Look at that. Let's head over to the Atari 2600 and let's check out Halloween. And here we have Halloween on the Atari 2600, and right away you get the actual Halloween theme song, which is really, really awesome. And there you are. You can see the actual people from the movie. Honestly, I forget what their names are, but they're running away from Michael Myers. You can see the little kid right there. You basically play the girl, the female in the movie. And you have to try to get the little kid to safety, and here comes Michael Myers. And he's gonna chop your head off, and he can chop your head off in this game, by the way. And oh my god, there's a good example of it. Oh, what the hell? I mean, well, that didn't turn out so well. I mean, well, this is actually an early example of a horror game done right on a video game, especially on the Atari 2600. This game was downright scary back in the day, and still is. I mean, you don't know exactly what corner Michael Myers is going to come out of. He's going to chop your head off. You have to try to escape. And this game is actually pretty scary, considering it's an Atari 2600 game. They did a great job making this game. This is a really, really awesome horror game on the 2600, probably with the best. The next game that we're going to be playing on the Atari 2600 is Pitfall. Great Activision game. Let's go check this out. And as you can see here, before we check this out, we're showing off the good games first. And we're going to make our way down to the not so good stuff. You'll see that later on in the video. Alright, here's the Activision Pitfall label art. It's your typical Activision label art right here, with a little screen capture right there in the center. Now, if you scored more than 20,000 points or higher, you did have the chance of winning an Activision patch back in the day. And here's how it looked. It looks pretty awesome. Let's check out Pitfall. Now, Pitfall is probably the most popular Atari 2600 game of all time. Anyone that has played the Atari 2600 has seen this game once or twice. Basically, you run around. It's an adventure game. You try to collect objects, try to score the highest score possible. And, you know, potentially you might get that Activision patch. This game definitely gets 3 stars. This game is fun. It's fun to explore, and it's fun to swing on the rope and all that stuff. Try not to die. So you know, you can definitely get bit by alligators and crocodiles, all that stuff. There's here they are right here. Oh no. The next game on the list is my favorite of all, River Raid for the Atari 2600. This is, if I could rate this beyond 3 stars, I would. This game is my all-time favorite 2600 game. Let's take a look at it and let's have fun. Alright, so here we have the River Raid label art, and it's, you know, a pretty standard Activision Atari 2600 label art with the little, it looks like a little gameplay capture screenshot right there in the center of the cartridge. This game also qualifies back in the day for a Activision patch. You can actually win one of those patches if you score over 15,000 points. You would probably have to like take a little picture of your TV somehow and mail it to Activision, then you get this patch. Pretty cool. Let's check out River Raid for the Atari 2600. Alright, now here we're playing River Raid, the very first game programmed by a female programmer, Hiro Shaw. Very monumental. Now, yeah, check this game out. This game is very, very awesome, and probably hands down my favorite 2600 game of all time. She did a very, very awesome job programming this game. I love it. It's probably the best shooter game on the Atari 2600. If you want to play a shooter game, vertical shooter, this is 3 stars all day long. This game's awesome. Alright, the next game that we're going to be showing off is Solaris for the Atari 2600. Check this game out. It could be a hidden gem. Who knows? This game looks like it's going to be pretty cool. So here we have the Solaris label art, and it looks like we're flying through space. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but you can see that we're definitely blowing things up. Now that is actually pretty cool. The label art on this cartridge is black and white. It's one of the later Atari 2600 labels. Let's take a look at the game, Solaris. Alright, here's the actual gameplay for Solaris, and you see that it's a shooter, and it has like some pretty cool depth to it. It's like you're flying through space right here. You have to try to avoid hitting these planets. You have a little map right here where you can actually navigate to various different places, and it's very, very fast-paced. And definitely the Atari 2600 had blast processing long before the Sega Genesis. This game is fun, and it gets 3 stars. Solaris on the Atari 2600. Alright, next up we have SpiderMan for the Atari 2600. And there's nothing really fancy to be seen here. You have a SpiderMan label art on this Atari cartridge right here, and the Green Goblin right there. And you know, the artwork on this looks pretty dated. It looks definitely pretty old, even for comic book standards for back then. I mean, it looks definitely dated. I'm not sure if this is based off the comic books or the 1970s Spider-Man TV show. Alright, this is a little bonus. Let's check this game out and see how good it is on the Atari 2600. And here we have the game right here, Spider-Man. And we got the Spider-Man little theme song right there, and here we go. We can use the Spidey web going up the building, and you can also fall right back down. And this game right here is actually surprisingly pretty fun. And it kind of resembles some of the other Spider-Man games. Like there's one on the Sega Master System that's actually pretty cool, where you have to climb up the building in the first level. And yeah, you can easily fall off this building and you can die. So you have to be very careful how you climb up. I think this game's fun. 3 stars. Highly recommended. Alright, here we have a Star Trek game right here. Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator. That's a Star Trek simulator, and you know what? The label art looks pretty darn cool. It's like a nice full label art. A lot of details, a lot of crazy stuff going on here, and I'm not a huge Star Trek fan at all. So I don't know a whole bunch of stuff about Star Trek. Never really cared to watch it at all. But let's head over to the Atari 2600 and let's check this game out. Let's see how good it is. Alright, here we have the Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator, and pretty cool title screen right there by Sega. And now this game is interesting. So it's like a shooter where you can actually fly around over the place, but you have a first-person view there on the bottom. So think of it almost like Asteroids, where you can turn around and shoot different objects, but on the bottom you have a completely different perspective. You have a first-person view. Very, very interesting. I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think just for that alone, it's worth owning the game, because you can pop it in and be like, wow, my Atari can actually do this. It's pretty awesome. Alright, next up we have Star Wars, the arcade game for the Atari 2600. So obviously this was an actual arcade game ported to the 2600. And I wonder how this will translate to being on the Atari 2600. We have to definitely check this out. There's nothing really too fancy to be seen on the label art. Except the Star Wars logo with the arcade game text right there below the actual logo itself. Now that's pretty much it. There's nothing else to be seen. So without any further ado, let's head over to the Atari 2600. And here we have the game itself, Star Wars the arcade game. And let's check this game out. Let's see how awesome this game is. And right away, we have a almost like a first-person perspective type deal going on here. And you know, this actually looks pretty impressive. You can see structures and all kinds of stuff, like to the left of you, to the right of you. You can actually see some depth from like these pillars, these walls right here. Definitely really, really crazy stuff for the Atari 2600. This is the Star Wars game to own. Star Wars, the arcade game. I'm giving it 3 stars. I like it a lot. I think this is actually one of the most impressive looking games on the Atari 2600. Alright, the next game on the Atari 2600 is Survival Run. Pretty interesting game. Let's take a look at this real quick. Alright, here we have the label art for Survival Run. It looks like a Milton Bradley game right here. And it looks like we're definitely flying through space. It looks almost like this Speed Racer Mach 5 transformed into a space vehicle. That's what that looks like to me. That looks pretty crazy looking. Alright, let's go check out Survival Run for the Atari 2600. Let's see how fun this is. Alright, here we have Survival Run. The gameplay footage, quite impressive. And here we have the Cosmic Commander controller that came packed with the game back in the day. And you can also play with a standard controller. This game is actually quite technical, and it looks very, very good on the Atari 2600. It's like first-person view. And you're flying around, you have to take out these little enemies that are flying around. And, graphically, the game looks really, really good. And you can see your little radar on top that helps you like navigate where you're going. And I had a lot of fun playing this game. This game is 3 stars. It's awesome. Alright, here we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The label art is identical to Halloween. It's pretty much a stock generic label art right there. I believe this might have been a reprint label art. Now, this game released back in 1983, and apparently the game was banned from nearly every single store that it sold in because of how violent it was. It was super violent. You'll see that in a second. It was pretty hard to actually get hold of a copy because of that reasoning by itself. So let's head over to the Atari 2600 and let's check this game out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And here we have the game right here, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Got the title screen blinking. And in this game, you actually play as Leatherface, and you have to try to go around chopping the heads off victims, and pretty sick stuff right here. You know, it would have made more sense if you actually played as the victim trying to escape Leatherface. That would have been really, really scary, like the Halloween game. But this kind of reverses the role. You actually play as the killer. And I can see why the game got banned, I guess. But the game is actually pretty fun. You have a fuel level on the top. You have to go around scoring points by killing your, I don't want to call them enemies or opponents or victims. And that's pretty much how you score in this game. Pretty sick, to say the least. Nonetheless, it's definitely probably the most violent game on the Atari 2600, for the exception of Halloween. But this game takes the violence to a whole new level because you are carrying out the violence. You are literally the killer. Pretty violent for back then, and yeah, the game got banned in a lot of stores, as mentioned already. Still gets a 3 star. It's actually a pretty decent horror game, but I just want to warn you ahead of time, this game is super violent for the Atari 2600, and you may not be your type of game. Alright, the next game on the list is Thunderground for the Atari 2600. Pretty interesting also. I want to see your rating down below. And here we have the label art for Thunderground, and as you can see here, it's a Sega game. It's an actual Sega game on the Atari 2600. And that kind of reminds me of, like, it has a look like an old movie poster look to it. You have like some sort of spacecraft going through like a maze, and it looks pretty crazy. Let's check out Thunderground on the Atari 2600. Alright, here we have Thunderground for the Atari 2600. If you like combat, old school combat, you'll definitely like this. It also gives you like a nice one-player aspect of something similar to combat, where you have to drive around and blow these tanks up. You also have to blow those, whatever those things are on the top of the screen. I'm not exactly sure what those are, but you have to blow all of those up and try not to die in the process like I just did right there. Now this game is actually quite fun, and it's a great shooter on the Atari 2600. I love it. It gets a 3-star rating. Thunderground on the Atari 2600, a Sega game. How cool is that? Alright, here we have Tron, Deadly Discs. For the Atari 2600, it's an M Network cartridge, so pretty much see what you get right here. There's nothing fancy on the cartridge at all. This the spine label has a little Tron logo, but that's as fancy as you're gonna get. There's nothing really fancy here whatsoever. Now this is what the box art looks like. Obviously the box art looks better than the cartridge. And let's see exactly how good this game is. Let's head over and let's find out. Is Tron Deadly Disc any good? Let's find out. Let's head over to the Atari 2600. And here we have the game right here, Tron Deadly Disc. And you have to pretty much do exactly what you do in the Tron movie. You have to run around and shoot discs at your enemies and try to hit them with the discs. And that's how you score in this game. And you know what? This game is actually pretty good. It's actually one of the better Tron games. This is exactly what I would want from a Tron game. You're literally doing exactly what's in the movie. You're shooting the discs out, hitting your opponents, and it's actually pretty fun. I'm going to give it 3 stars. It's actually pretty fun, and I will say if you're going to buy a Tron game, let it be this one right here. This game's actually not bad. Surprise, surprise. The next game on the list right here, this is going to be our final really good game that we're going to be showing off. It's Tunnel Runner for the Atari 2600. Nice, what I consider a hidden gem. Let's check this game out. Alright, here we have the Tunnel Runner cartridge, and Tunnel Runner is big yellow letters. And this game apparently has extra RAM, RAM Plus. Let's see exactly how that works out as we play Tunnel Runner on the Atari 2600. Alright, it appears that Tunnel Runner actually has a title screen. Now that's not too common on a 2600 game, and here we have what appears to be a randomized, it looks like a random maze, and look at this, it looks like a dungeon crawler type thing going on here. You're actually looking through a maze. It's like first person shooter view, and look at this is insane. You have this chomping face that's trying to kill you. Oh my god, that's scary. I mean, this is pretty crazy to see, a first person view game on an Atari 2600 where you're navigating through a maze trying to stay alive. This game definitely gets 3 stars. I mean, look how awesome it looks. I mean, this is insane. It's definitely way advanced for the Atari 2600. Pretty awesome. There's so many classic hits for the Atari 2600. The last game that we're featuring here on the good list is ztac. ztac is a pretty cool game. Let's check out ztac for the Atari 2600. Alright, so here we have the ztac label art. There's nothing really too exciting here. You have the big huge bomb logo on top, which I'm guessing that might be the company that made the game. And ztac in yellow letters right there in the center. And just a pretty simple blue background. Generic cartridge. This game is probably obscure, not too easy to find. And let's take a look at this game and let's see what ztac is all about. Alright, so here we have ztac, and it's one of those shooters, but instead of shooting up, you shoot down towards your enemy, which is pretty original, pretty different. You know what, and the game's actually pretty fun. It's not bad at all. You have like little small openings where you have to try to calculate how you hit your enemies. It's definitely a 3-star. It's a lot of fun to play. I think it's actually pretty good. It looks like you play as an actual UFO. That's what it looks like to me. And you have the little score on top. You have tons of enemies. It gets harder as you advance into the game. Definitely worth picking up if you can find a copy for the Atari 2600. Pretty awesome.